All right. So the Gemara asks, what is the case that Shmuel says that in the case of Ketana Bas Yisrael, she doesn't have to wait for her marriage. She doesn't have to delay it by 3 months. Once again, we've already had Shmuel's statement that in the case of Ma'enes, she doesn't have to wait 3 months. And the Gemara is going to quote that immediately. Shmuel says that if she was divorced, then she must wait 3 months to get remarried, even though she's a ketana. The Omer Shmuel, miyana bo. Bo means the husband. So the ketana who is married off b'drabbanan to this man, she could be mema'enes bo. And then she wants to get married to someone else. She's allowed to get married immediately. And we don't accept the gzera, we don't apply the gzera of ketana atu gedola. Why? Because, as we said before, the fact that she was yotzeis b'miyun, that's sort of like a flag, that indicates that it's a very unique situation. We're not going to assume that they'll confuse this case to be mater gedola, because the gedol doesn't have miyun, only ketana has miyun. So people will know, it's going to be popular knowledge that a gedola, when she wants to get married, to a new husband, she's got to wait 3 months since her last relationship with her previous husband. They're not going to come to confuse it based on the case of ketana and miyun. However, nasan la get, if a man delivers a get when miyun doesn't operate, because this ketana was married off by her father, Nisuin Doraisa, she needs a get. He gave her a get. Because we don't have that flag of miyun that indicates the unique nature of that issues of that relationship. So in the case of get, when we're dealing with the Doraisa, then we have a gzera of ketana or tu gedola. So now we've excluded 2 out of 3, we've eliminated 2 out of 3 possibilities in terms of what case Shmuel says that a ketana bas Yisrael does not need hamtana. It cannot be the case of miyun because that Shmuel already told me. It cannot be the case of get because in the case of get, Shmuel requires havchana. So by process of elimination, it's got to be a case of znus. And znus b'ketana lo shchiyah. Oh, that's what I like, because in the previous case we said that znus is shchiyah, but now we're saying no, that znus b'ketana is not shchiyah, and then we apply the universal principle of milza de lo shchicha lo gazu be'rabbanon. Giores u'mishuchreres gedola the shchiyah buznus ligza. This is quite common, that we should have a need for avchana in a case of a giores who's a gedola. Because, before her gerus, she lived a more loose kind of life, unless we assume that she anticipated her gerus. She already had in mind gerus, so she was living a pure life to make sure that she wouldn't have this problem of avchana. But why was Shmuel matir without amtana for a giores gedola to get married? Without amtana, without waiting 3 months? That's certainly a case of shchiach uznus. So we really have a pressing need for avchana. And the answer is who the Yomi Rabbi Yossi. Shmuel accepts the opinion of Rabbi Yossi. And Rabbi Yossi matili oresful inase miyad. In other words, according to Rabbi Yossi, when a woman has nus, she takes care to make sure that she won't get pregnant from this nus. And therefore, in case of nus, Rabbi Yossi holds there's no requirement to have kana, because we don't even assume the possibility that she might be pregnant. And Shmuel accepts Rabbi Yossi, and that's why it was matir to suin without amtana of 3 months. Amar Rabba, my time with Rabbi Yossi, kasavar isha mizanim mishameshes b'moch kidei shelo tis'ab. That a woman who's living a loose life will make sure that she doesn't get pregnant from her relations with various men, and she'll use a moch, right? She inserts a kind of like what we would call today a diaphragm or some sort of method of contraception. He calls it semer gefen or tzlishet semer rach or greiras begodim, bluyim, different kinds of cloths that she inserts in order to absorb the sperm so she won't get pregnant. That's why a Giores, even though we assume she lived a little bit of a loose life before she became a Jewish woman, she does not need Havchan of Shlosh Chadoshim. We assume for sure that she did not, that she took precautions to make sure and guarantee that she would not become pregnant. And that's Rabbi Yosef. Amalei Abaye, Bishleim a Giores, I understand very well why a Gioris doesn't need to wait 3 months. Since she has in mind, she anticipates Gerus. A woman doesn't all of a sudden wake up one morning and decide to become a Gioris. Therefore, Nafsha, she's very careful not to become pregnant. Right, that no one should think that she's carrying the baby of a non-Jew, non-Jewish baby, because she hasn't yet undergone Gerus, so the baby would not be Jewish. So she wants to make sure that we would be able to determine with absolute certitude that the baby is Jewish. And how would she guarantee that? By taking the precautions and using a moch when she has any sort of relationship, knowing that the child from such a relationship would not be Jewish because she hasn't yet undergone Gerus, and she doesn't want to get into that confusion about whether the child is Jewish or not Jewish, so she'll take precautions, and then she'll undergo Gerus, and then she'll get married, Kedasu Kedin, and the child will certainly be Jewish. And Shvuya v'Shivcha Nami, why in the case of a Shvuya does she anticipate that she'll become a full-fledged Jewess, and therefore if she has any sort of, free relationship, she'll take the precautions necessary with a moch? And the answer is, she already heard, she overheard that the master was intending to deliver to her a get shikhr. And therefore, lachein menatre nafshayu, she takes care, kidei lahavchin bein zera shenizra b'kedusha l'zera shenirga shelo b'kedusha, and she uses the moch b'shas tashmish, and therefore we don't require havchana. We know with all certitude that she is not pregnant. Ela yotzes b'shein v'ayin heichi mishkakas la. When we talk about a shivcha shenishtachara, there are two possibilities. One possibility is that her master delivered a get shikhr to her. And there's another possibility that he took out a limb. It's called shein v'ayin. And the din is that a woman goes through a shivcha, or that matter, an evet, goes free automatically with shein v'ayin. If the master struck him and removes even a tooth, I shouldn't say even a tooth could be dangerous, right? So the Gemara wants to know, how could she possibly anticipate the irua, this happening of losing, being beaten up and losing a tooth? How could she have anticipated such that she would have up front taken care in her loose life to use a moch? The chitem, and if you'll say, called the memela, Moder Rabbi Yossi, maybe you'll tell me that in the case of Hotzah Shein V'ayin, where she could not have anticipated a shichrur, Rabbi Yossi would have to be moder that she needs havchana. V'atnan, what are we going to do with the Mishnah? Anusa u'mefuta tzricha lahamtin shlosha chadoshim Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yotzi Matan Liores Uli Nase Miyad. So we see that even in the case of Anusa, which she couldn't have possibly anticipated, that Chas V'Shalom she would have this rape situation, even so, she doesn't require Hatchana. She doesn't require delaying her marriage for 3 months. Now, how do you understand that? She was not taking precautions to avoid getting pregnant when she was raped. I mean, could she have known? There's another method of contraception, not the one you'd want to use for Chatchila, but after the znus, she gets rid of the zera before it could be niklat, before it could make her pregnant. So what did she do? She turns over so that the zera would go out and it wouldn't remain inside her uterus. Kedei shelo tisam. And the same thing in the case of Yotzeis B'Shein V'Ayin. That after she has tashmish, she'll be misapeches, even though she's not anticipating that she'll get a shikra because her master is going to crack her tooth. So a woman who's living this kind of lifestyle will always take precautions. It's no big tircha for her to turn over and get the zera out of the Beis HaRechem. So since she protects herself from being misaber, she doesn't require shlosh kadosh. Ve'idach, and what does Rabbi Yehuda hold? He says an isha mizana misapeches. Nevertheless, chayshin and shemalo nishapcha yofi. This is not the best method of contraception. There's no way that we could rely on the fact that because she turns over the other way, she'll get the zera out of her body before she becomes impregnated. And therefore, even in the case of Giores, Shenis Gaira, or Shvuya Sheniftes, or Shivcha Shenishtachra, in all these cases, she needs to wait 3 months of Havchana. That's the Shita of Yehuda. And we're not going to rely on Nishapcha, because Shemalon Nishapcha Yafa Yafa. And this leads us to the next section, which is the Mishnah Im Hayu Kohanos. So make a note that we got up to Im Hayu Kohanos on the top of Daf Lamed Hey. Well, actually, it's towards the bottom of Daf Lamed Hey, actually. It's on the lower half of Daf Lamed Hey. And we're about to make a siyum in Mitzvah Shem on Yom Rishon on Perek Shlishi. Amen.